Hello guys, it's Chummaster doing another BakuTech review. So, yeah, we have another re-review this time on the Shield deck. So, this is a deck that I definitely underrated a little bit back in the day, mainly because of this first Bakugan here, which is Dive Fujoe. One thing I'm going to agree with myself on from 7 years ago is I do not like the design of this thing. In ball form it looks okay, but I'll show you what I mean when it opens up. However, I kind of just said this thing was bad, but it's not actually bad. I'll talk more about that in a moment. But let's go and open this thing up. Okay, it opens up like that. Now, you can do this thing, there's like this little lever here where you can like pull this down, and it stays up. Now, like this, I still think it looks a little bit strange. Also, there are some manual parts in this guy. So let me open those up. They just kind of flip out. They're really weird. This entire Bakugan is just very awkward and strange. Also, there is its G power. 620 right there. So, yeah, I would refocus the camera for that, but whenever I refocus the camera in these videos, it goes horribly wrong, so I'm just going to try to not. But, yeah, 620, alright. But, yeah, like this, it just falls over so easily. Like, I barely touched it, it just fell over. It doesn't stay up well. This is not, I don't think this is just mine either. So yeah, looks like this a lot of the time. This looks absolutely terrible. If this head could just have like had its own mode or something like that. This looks kind of weird, but it's not as bad, but it just falls and opens up like this, and it just doesn't look good. Also, I just don't like how this top part looks much at all. But you can kind of see it does take up a lot of the card. And for like an Aquas Bakugan for occupancy, this thing is kind of really good. And I would argue is probably one of the best Aquas Bakugan. Obviously, you'd probably want to use like Gogaryu or Bury Beyond over this thing. But it's actually a pretty good Bakugan overall. And I guess if you were running like a pure Aquas team, I think, you know, this would be an okay third Bakugan. I'd personally use like BakuTech or something. You could also go like St. Aquas for some low G setups, but like, I'd personally use St. Aquas, but like if you want kind of that awkward low G power setup type of thing, because if you were using Gogaryu, that's an attacker, Bury Beyond is more defensive. You know, St. Aquas is its own niche, so if you want to use that, which I would, you know, you can. But if you want a second attacker, you have BakuTech, a second defender, this thing. So if you want a more defensive team, if you're going mono Aquas for whatever reason, this is probably your third member right here. Yeah, it's a little bit of a weird one. I just want to give this thing some justice, since I did not do that at all in my original review. So I just want to talk about this thing a little bit, but yeah. Overall, I don't like how this thing looks, not in the slightest, but yeah, it exists and actually is pretty good. Also worth noting, there is one cross piece right here on the tail. Probably a good idea to swap that out for metal if you were to use it though, but yeah. Now we get to a strange one, which is a Gravity Gnome. So this is the darkest Bakugan, which is unfortunate, which I will talk about why that's unfortunate. So yeah, we'll get to that in a bit. So here it is. Now it has this gimmick. Well, first up, there's like this weird ridge on this thing, which like why? No, that should just not have been there. I know I just defended the Trifalco tail bump thing in my last review, but I'm not defending this. That was a bad design. This is not a good Bakugan to have that on, in my opinion. So now let's open this thing up, and it opens up kind of weirdly, which I will explain. Well, I guess it's hard to see, but it's supposed to, like, I heard something about, like, it's supposed to open up and, like, flip Bakugan or something. Like, it's supposed to open up from the back here, come out and, like, smack them. It doesn't really do that. Like, you can maybe get a crit KO with this thing like that. I mean, you can't. Well, actually, first, let's just say 620 Gs. Let's go ahead and get this thing opened up before I start getting everything, but feet open up. And there's like these horns on the top, which are really, really awkward. And yeah, so there we go. Okay, now we have Gravity Node opened up. And yes, these are 2 soul pieces. These are 2 cross pieces. Okay, now you talk more about it. So yeah, you can crit KO things, but like, I don't think it's that great for it. Now, if you swap out all the pieces, you have 4 metal pieces, this thing becomes actually decent. But, I mean, I just think that the whole attack gimmick of it's supposed to like, apparently it's supposed to like flip Bakugan or something. It really just does not do that. And if it's supposed to, maybe I'm just really bad at it or something. I don't know. I've just never really seen this thing do a whole lot attack-wise, outside of just kind of bullying things if you put 4 metal pieces on there and put it against something that's not as good. Yeah, I mean, 4 metal pieces can definitely do some damage, but it's not like phenomenal either. And there's a lot of Bakugan that have that, and I feel like you're much better off using, like, I guess if you want an attacker, like a Flare Dragon, even like a Destroy Municus can work in that regard if you want it to. I think Zero Municus is where they... Oh god, I just hit that. Okay. Sorry about that. Anyway, I think Zero Municus is really when they started to go more into the spin shot thing. Like, Destroy Municus kind of has it, but like you can still use it as an attacker if you want to. But Zero is definitely better for spin shots, no questions asked. But yeah, this thing, I just feel like it's also tall. Like yeah, I mean, it stays up pretty well compared to other tall Bakugan, but like, I think part of that's because of the tail, but like if it gets hit from the side, it can like recover, although, I mean, if you close the feed, since that's something that would probably happen, I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot of effort to just do that. Yeah, I mean, anyway, basically, yeah, tall Bakugan are not the most defensive things, and this would probably not, like, I'm just trying to say this thing isn't actually that good. Like, it's not terrible or anything, it's just not good. It just kind of exists. Like, yeah, it can work as an alright attacker, but there's better. And it doesn't have much defense, but it can still work. But again, like I said earlier, it's Darkus, and the reason why that's unfortunate, Darkus is absolutely stacked as an attribute. So, I feel like you would not really want to use this thing. Because again, Darkus, it's just so good of an attribute, and this thing is like okay, and I mean, it's just not up to par with Darkus Bakugan. Now let's get into the last Bakugan here, kind of the main part of this deck, Shield Leoness. So Shield Leoness looks like this, and it is a pretty cool looking Bakugan. It's Chaos, and it's pretty cool. This thing, you can kind of open up this part here. It's like the only real manual part. And G power is right here on the tail. So yeah, it is 640 Gs. At this part, you can kind of just pull that up if you want. Sure. And yeah, there it is. There is Shield Leoness. Comes with metal already on it, which is nice. And this thing just doesn't stay up. It doesn't matter, honestly. So you have the 2 metal cross pieces on the front, and then a third one on the back for the tail, which is nice. So Shield Leoness, okay, this thing's actually really good. I would say it's debatable to what's the best Leoness. I think it's between this and Ogre, but like Ogre wasn't that crazy, honestly. It's pretty good though, but this is also pretty good. I mean, 3 metal pieces on a defensive Chaos Bakugan that's also very low to the ground. I think this thing's actually pretty good. If you're running like a mono Chaos deck, right? The only thing that I think is like for sure that you have to use is Nagadaja. But outside of that, you could honestly just use Ogre Leoness and Shield Leoness if you really want to. I mean, other options, maybe Blend Shelt if you want to do that, or like, I guess Sextavinal, but like Sextavinal can be applied to any attribute, so it's kind of a weird one right there, but still, this is definitely a worthwhile Chaos Bakugan to consider. It is pretty good. I mean, I guess you could kind of attack with it. I mean, you got like the 3 metal pieces, like if you really want to, but Doesn't actually occupy a ton of the card, though, I will say. From about center card, it's like okay-ish, but not great. And its main purpose, though, is just to be a tanky Bakugan, and it does that pretty well, and especially if you get like a front card position, maybe opened up sideways or something like this, you know, this is like a pretty good Bakugan. It's definitely going to be a harder one to move, which, yeah, that's the thing. It does its job as a defender, and Chaos it's like represented well enough, but not like Pyrus or Darkest levels or anything, so you still got to work with some things, and I think, you know, it's a pretty good Chaos Bakugan overall. And yeah, it's pretty nice. Now let's just talk about the deck as a whole, though. That's a fun topic, so let's get into all of these guys and talk about them. Just kind of as a unit or anything else that maybe I wanted to mention. And can we get Dive Fujoe to not look stupid? I don't think we are going to get that. There we go. Very messy final shot here, but like, it works. Okay, so individually, Shield Leoness and Dive Fujoe are both pretty good. They're like, I mean, they're solid enough, but like for their respective attributes, they're definitely pretty good. And if you're running a mono deck of either attribute, they're definitely worthy contenders of a third slot. Gravity Gnome is like pretty okay. I'd say it's like a step, maybe 2 steps below the other two, but it's not bad. Again, especially if you swap it with the plastic with the metal. I don't know why I just got so tongue-tied on that. But anyway, yeah, if you swap those out, it's like pretty decent, but it doesn't have that mono attribute type of thing going on, which I know you don't have to go like mono attribute. I just like to mention it because, you know, I know some people like that, which, yeah, sure, you know, I mean, it's worth mentioning at least, and this definitely does not have it as a Darkest Bakugan. Again, Darkest is just highly competitive, which I've said this a lot in my recent reviews, but yeah. Anyway, so as a unit, what do I think about this deck personally before I get into the competitive score? Personal score is a little bit awkward. I'm gonna have to say, honestly, a 4 out of 10. Kind of a subpar deck in my opinion, at least just personally. I think Shield Leoness is really, really cool. I do like Shield Leoness a lot. Gravity Gnome is like kind of just there. It's like, yeah, it's fine. And then there's Dive Fujoe, which I think I was gonna give this deck a 5, just say it was okay, but to me, again, agreeing with myself from 7 years ago, Dive Fujoe is like a negative point, so 4. I don't like this deck very much, just in appearance and just kind of how they are. But as, you know, for the competitive score, I think this is actually a pretty good deck. You know, for the pre-made decks, I think, again, I gotta be a little bit fair here. This isn't a proper competitive deck. But, you know, for these pre-made decks, I give them some leeway because, again, they are pre-made. I'm gonna give this deck a 7.5 out of 10. I think it's actually pretty good and easily one of the better decks out there for, like, the pre-made ones. You got a couple tanky Bakugan here. One is very good for defense. Well, I mean, not very good, but pretty good for defense. With Shield Leoness, you have a pretty good occupancy Bakugan. Actually, really good occupancy Bakugan, honestly, with Dive Fujoe. And then Gravity Gnome, it's like an okay attacker, I guess. 4 metal pieces, you could at least do something with that, right? So, it's a strange deck, but I think it is worth at least getting a 7.5. I think it's missing a little bit to get to an 8, but I feel like it's unfair to put a 7 here, so 7.5 I think is the best route to go, so yeah. That's a Shield deck. I think it's a deck. It's one of the decks out there. Not the best one, not even best competitively, but it is still like pretty good competitively for a pre-made deck. And then, personally, yeah, I'm just not a fan of it. Like, yeah, nah. But yeah, that's a Shield deck. Hopefully I was able to correct some of my original stuff, because I said Dive Fujoe was bad, and no, it really isn't. Like, it has the occupancy. It's not bad, so yeah. But yeah, that's everything for this video. So yeah, we'll be back next week for the last weekly re-review. Still have more stuff planned for next year with BakuTech reviews, so it's not going anywhere, but we'll be taking a little bit of a break. So yeah. Anyways, that's all for this review. So yeah, thanks for watching, and bye-bye.